Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. My name is Daniel Karp. I'm one of your hosts of the new podcast, Greenlit and Grounded. In our very first episode, we have the opportunity to chat with Romy Weltman, one of the stars of the new hit Syfy series, Revival. We get to talking to her about her audition process, being a young child actor and growing into a young woman, and so much more. If an episode like this interests you and you want to stay in touch with what we're up to, please consider dropping a like and subscribing, and we hope you enjoy. Romy Weltman, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. We've been really interested in some of the projects that you've been working on over the last little while, and you've got a really big one coming up in Revival, right? And when's that supposed to come out?
So as far as I know right now, it's coming out mid-June.
Right.
I don't have an exact date, but mid-June.
The
summer.
Was there any pressure put on it? Because Revival is, the show is basically a live action of an already established comic book, correct?
Yes.
And so tell us a little bit about the character, but more from the lens of what it was like bringing that to life, knowing that there's an already established fan base.
What's interesting about Revival is that it's based on a comic book, and I did originally audition for a different character. So I auditioned for a made-up character named Kay, who ends up being M's roommate at university and one of her soon-to-be friends. The showrunners decided to add that, and the writer's room added that into the story of the TV show because in the comic book, M had no friends.
Right.
And it was just kind of sad when you put it in a different medium
Right.
to not give her somebody that's rooting for her.
But did they, when you got the audition, did they say like, no, this is not a character in the Like there was
They
no.
didn't.
Okay.
So what I actually did was I researched Revival K, and I went down a
Couldn't find
deep hole
anything.
and couldn't find anything. So
Right.
I did. By doing that, I just naturally learned a lot about Revival as a comic book. But I just did the audition and just sent it off.
Yeah.
Never heard anything. You don't really think much of it because when do you hear things? And then, a few months later, I got an audition that they were still searching for M. I'm not going to lie, when I did read for K, I was kind of like, I want to read for M. But then I was like, okay, oftentimes being a Canadian actor, I'm very aware that oftentimes leads do go to American actors as well. It's just part of the industry. So even when I got that email of still searching for M and these two other characters, I kind of had a gut feeling, maybe they cast an American and they're just doing their Canadian run of like, we really didn't find someone here. So all I can do with that is do a good audition for the casting directors.
Yeah.
Hope people see it. Hope they remember me. Never did I expect anything to come out of it, but I'm really, really happy it did.
And it was a pretty quick turnaround for you, right? Because from when you booked it to when you had to be on set, it was like just under 2 weeks kind of thing?
Yeah, it was weird. I pretty much got the audition Friday, had a coaching session with my coach, Steven, for a different audition that I had. And then I ended up messaging him being like, I just got this other audition. Something feels right. I understand the lines. Like, let's just do it. He was like, okay. And I was like, so I got this an hour ago. Let's just give it a go.
Yeah.
Throw it down.
Something about the character, first of all, the writing, I'm getting a little off track here, but I do think as a young woman, it's hard to find good writing for us, especially when it is written by older men, which I saw that it had two men's.
I honestly experienced that as well because when I'm looking for material and I'm trying to find scenes that have well thought out, multi-layered, nuanced, contemporary writing for women in general, but specifically young women, I find it's much more difficult.
Yeah, it's very interesting, and it's not anybody's fault because you kind of write what you know, and when you're older, you just know more, and you're also your lens of what you're seeing is very different.
Great point.
Right.
But when I read M's dialogue, I was like, whoa, I did so much research on Aaron and Luke, who are the showrunners and creators of the show, because I was like, who are these guys? And this writing is so good, and it just hit me instantly. So I was like, something feels right about not overthinking this and working on it and just doing it. And I think that actually was probably the best thing for me in that moment was not overthinking all my actor choices and just bringing myself to the role. And then I found out Monday evening that I was pinned. Tuesday, they were asking for more of my footage, but I couldn't provide what they were asking for because they were asking from a different show that hadn't been released yet. So I ended up sending like a bit of a short film, and then they were like, okay, so there's 3 girls, really quick turnaround. Can you put these 10 pages on tape ASAP?
Yeah.
Wow.
So I was like, yeah, I'll do anything at this point.
Yeah.
Did that, and then was getting emails the next day. That was Wednesday night. I sent that tape off at pretty much probably like 12 in the morning, so maybe Thursday morning. Thursday afternoon, it was emailed to me, would you shave your head for this role? No, first it was, would you cut your hair for this role?
Yeah.
And my agent's assistant, Ari, was like, I'm just trying to get a few more details, like trying to get
What
an
that
image.
means.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, like a cut is different
There's
than
a
a shave,
difference.
right?
Yeah, so they were like,
Yeah.
cut. And I was like, yeah, of course I'd
I'll
cut my hair. What
Who
are you
knows?
talking
Yeah.
about? I'll do anything.
Couple
and they were
inches,
like,
no big deal.
so would you shave it? And meanwhile, like everyone, low-key, I was serving at the time, so I was at work. Meanwhile, everyone was like chipping in on their opinions, and I just emailed my agent's assistant privately, being like, I'd shave my head if that gives you anything.
And when you say
Yeah.
shave head, do you mean like full shave?
No, sorry. I really should have specified
No,
that.
you're fine.
They sent 2 photos. One was a more intense cut than we ended up doing, but one was pretty much the cut that we ended up doing, which was hair not much longer than yours, Jared.
You know,
Actually, like
They need a body double.
truly,
Say,
yeah,
Season 2,
seriously.
you need a body double. I got
It could
you.
work really,
I'll shave
really
the side
well.
of the head. It's no
And
problem.
then we did a side shave here, which I can show for the camera.
Oh, it's
all
still...
grown
Yeah, it's
out,
growing back,
though.
yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Growing pretty fast.
Yeah.
I can't lie. I wanted to say that I really wouldn't care, and in the moment, the decision was a no-brainer. But the days building up to it, I was definitely nervous.
You like felt the stress around it.
Yeah,
Why
of
is
like
that?
this, oh no, I'm changing my full look. What if it really doesn't work? What if, I don't know, like all the imposter syndrome thoughts of like, what if I get there, they shave my head, and then they decide, actually, never mind, we're going another way.
We don't like the shape of her head anymore.
Yeah, and I'm like, no.
Yeah,
Also,
I mean-
yeah, I don't know the shape of my
Yeah.
head.
Yeah, it seems like a really big decision. I mean, I've never shaved my head, and I've always thought of this idea of like, if I shave my head, it would be for a role.
Well, that's what I've always said too. I shouldn't speak for everyone, but personally, I feel like I've never had the full opportunity in my life to like play with my look
Yeah.
based on how I'm feeling. And that's not like a,
Oh, interesting. Based
I'm
on
so
how you're
upset.
feeling.
Yeah, in the sense of like, I've definitely wanted to chop my hair off in the past, but they advise you to keep it long because it's easier for production
Right.
to cut your hair than grow your hair. So it's
Right.
like all my life, I actually wanted to shave my head in high school. Like not my full
yeah.
head, but
like
I
a
really
side?
wanted to do a star here, like
Yeah.
in my edgy phase
Because
of
you're
life.
a star.
Stop
Well,
it.
no. So with that, we can cut that part
No,
out.
honestly, my mom said the same thing, so it was really funny. It was really funny.
No, but I honestly didn't realize it. I thought your hair fully grew back in, and you're just covering it. But I'm curious how that, like that's obviously a conversation with your agent, right? Of like,
Yes.
you do this,
Yeah.
you're on set for however long you're on set for. Then after, like, do you have to get new headshots, wait for your hair to grow before you go out for other roles? Like, what's
Or
that?
what are the elements that go into that kind of conversation, decision making with your team, with your people?
Yeah, it was interesting because with everyone, I do have management in the States, so there's a time difference there. And then at the time, my agent was in Europe, so there was like a big
boy.
time
Wow.
difference between all of us.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like a big phone call. It was kind of like we were all just cats trying to
thread, like
chase
a-
our tail like
Yeah.
for a minute there. Yeah, literally.
A group chat and everyone's not on the same time zone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it was kind of funny because it was like mixed messages at the time. I think one of the haircuts would have probably pigeonholed me for a while, like that they had shown. I think because I play younger also a lot, having a lot of hair just hides you. So
Right.
Right.
it gives you this younger look. They weren't really concerned. They were just like, because they did say that like the hair team will work with the
Yeah.
actor that we cast, we promise. And like it was very much we can't send her off to the network without knowing that she's going to do this. So
Yeah.
I did know it was a make or break situation for the
Right.
character. And based on what I knew about the character, which I'll get into, I had a gut feeling that it was just going to make sense
It was
for
going
the
to make
story.
sense, yeah. It wasn't like some arbitrary choice.
Yeah, it was a story point. And to me, a lot of things come down to that of like, what does it serve the story?
Right.
When I'm always questioning something, I'm like, okay, well, am I questioning it because it doesn't feel right? Or am I questioning it because I'm uncomfortable with how it's serving the story? And if you're
Right.
uncomfortable with it,
Yeah.
can you get over that? And also setting personal boundaries of like, I don't want to do this. I did read, the hair wasn't even a question for me in the sense of I spoke to a few friends who didn't even know what I was up for. And I was like, would you do this? And honestly, a lot more people said no than I expected.
Oh, interesting.
Yes.
You did say something earlier about when you received the audition, there was something about reading it that you just read it and you felt connected to it. And you were like, I just got this an hour ago. Let's just throw it on tape. And you've been doing this for a certain amount of time that I'd love to know more about when you get an audition and you read the material, how do you discern if it's something that you think you need to put less work into or more work into? Is it simply just a matter of, I connect with this, I just got to memorize the lines, add a little breathing, bing, bang, boom, I'm off to the races? Or is it based on the size of the project? How do you discern that? Because you've surely developed your own sort of, I don't know what the right word is, like a rubric based on how much time you've got, how much work you want to put into it.
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like a bit of a bad actor when I say, like, I didn't put that much prep into it. But it's like, no, that actually doesn't make you a bad actor. That just makes you a different actor. It's not
I mean,
but you do feel this sense of, like, am I lazy?
Well, I mean, but like if it fits, like you said, it just felt right. So when you say it felt right, was it like you read the breakdown and you're like, I see how I could get into this character? Was it the sides? Was it both? Like,
Yeah, so for this one in particular, and then it's a really great question, and I feel like I could answer it based on even the specific project of the coaching I had booked was to play a younger version of a well-known actress. So I wanted to do a lot of research. Like in that case for me, what I like to do is I like to study the older versions of who I'm auditioning to play younger versions of. And I really learned that on the set of Shadowhunters, which I'm embarrassed to say I didn't know before when I was playing the younger version of somebody. Yeah. But I was acting across Alex Ealing, was just like his older, like who he was playing the younger version of. Yeah. The guy was just so excited that Alex had like really picked up on everything that he was doing. And I asked him how he did it. And I was like, oh, okay, next level to this work. Yeah. So ever since then, I've been truly inspired to do it. And I do think it makes the world of a difference. That was over 10 years ago also, which is crazy to think about. But other than that, I think, so that was the big thing was like, okay, I feel like I could do more prep work for the audition I had. I felt good about it, but it wouldn't hurt to do a bit more. Whereas when I got the sides for M, I just quickly opened them to be like, oh, how I had a very busy weekend with auditions. It was one of those very great busy weekends that I was like, let me see what I'm in for. M also, she, like, to get into her character more, her backstory is that she has OI, which is brittle bone disease. Yeah. And she was taking oxycodone her entire life to handle the pain, and she ended up developing an addiction. So after spoiler alert, but it's in the comics, so it's not a spoiler alert, Revival is about revivers, which is pretty much like people coming back from the dead. And after she comes back from the dead, she can no longer get high anymore. And also her bone disease, which has kind of been like, basically everything that people were telling her was making her small made her big. And I think that was like what really hit. And in the sides, one of the scenes was her basically losing it on her family, being like, you don't understand me. And to be honest, I've felt that before. Me in high school. I always say that like M is me in high school behind closed doors. In terms of like the side of me that I don't think a lot of people, except for maybe my family, has seen. But like she journals a lot and draws, so do I. I think that's how she deals with her emotions. They put in there that she listens to music a lot, which is what I was doing on set. So I feel like they also helped us mesh as one too. But in terms of deciding what gets more attention or prep work, I think it does come down to like the story points. So for something like a Murdoch Mysteries, which I've had the pleasure of being on, that's not something I'm prepping the night before. Absolutely not, because the words are completely different. Like the dialogue is something I'm not comfortable with.
Even the rhythm in which they speak, it's very not contemporary, and so you have to spend a little more time with that.
100%.
I mean, there's also so much to look at too, right? There's so many seasons that you could see kind of
Yeah, so that's for sure another point of like if the show already exists, doing studies on what the show has been. And I think when it comes to more intense, like supernatural, which is ironic because Revival is a sci-fi show. Yeah. But when it does come to like more supernatural or nitty gritty, really important moments in the scene that's in the writing, then I feel like it's clear. Whereas these audition scenes, there was very important stuff in the writing that definitely served the story. But I felt, especially because there was so much writing and it was such a quick turnaround, I read it and I was like, this just is emotion. This is a raw person. This is, if I put too much into this, I'm not going to bring anything raw to it.
Right.
But surely your assessment of that is something that you've developed over, I mean, you've been doing this since you were a kid, right? How old were you when you started?
12.
Yeah. And so you've been doing this for, over a decade. And so that has to come with a certain amount of confidence and expertise to know this is the kind of thing that I have to pour myself into. This is the kind of thing I got to just lead with my gut. This is the kind of thing I got to get really clinical and academic about.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. No, yeah. There are the ones that become more academic. I haven't quite hit, I'm in a weird point, I think, where I'm not quite playing the same characters as in like high school. I find when I was in high school, I can still play high school age. It just depends on what the show is, obviously.
Yeah, like how they want to cast that version of high school.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I found when I was younger, there were a lot more stereotypical roles. So, like, if I was auditioning to play a nerdier character, I had more mathematic terms to say or stuff like that. Those I would have to take a lot of time with to actually make sure I understood what I was saying to a certain point. So I know one day when I start auditioning for, like, doctors and lawyers, which I've had one audition for a lawyer, which
you'll get there.
Was out of reach for me. I was like,
Apprentice
there we go. That's more like it.
Yeah.
When I got those audition sides, I was like, pardon?
Yeah.
You want me to say what now?
Well, actually, so that's a really good segue into something else that we were curious about, because as a result of you doing this since you were a kid, and you did certain roles that, you know, you say, oh, this is like a stereotypical version of A, B, or C. Over time, you probably start to form, I don't want to just say an image, but casting starts to see you in a certain light. And it's tough to make those transitions from being a kid into a preteen, and then being a preteen into a teen, into a young adult, into a full-fledged adult and everything. And do you find that there were certain hurdles in you making those transitions, specifically from the perspective in how casting saw you or didn't see you, and how have you had to not fight that, but kind of overcome that and get seen for who you are now versus their perspective of you from before?
Yeah, it's interesting. Lewis had said something to me, Lewis Beaumander had said something to me years ago when I had booked Backstage, which was a Family Channel TV show that I did for 2 seasons.
Yeah.
Where he said, he's like, this show, because I'd always train with him consistently, and he's like, this show has done the best thing for you in terms of getting you in the room, but now you have a lot more to prove when you're in the room, because there are expectations from you that there aren't expectations of from other kids.
Right.
Which was probably one of the best pieces of advice I got at that age, because I was like, oh, okay, I understand.
And what were those expectations?
Yeah, I want to say what, what.
I think there was a certain expectation. I hate to use this term, but I do think people pigeonhole kid actors and like Family Channel, Disney Channel actors of like, oh, they can't be raw actors. They can't do the serious things.
Like gritty
They can't be gritty. They're always going to be the pretty perfect, which was ironic because I was not playing the pretty perfect girl on Backstage at all, which I think actually might have served me in that, is that I was playing a bit of an edgier character at the time.
Yeah.
My character was a DJ. Like, she had a lot of excitement going on and wasn't like
so edgy.
So edgy. I
So
mean,
edgy. I'm the DJ. I'm edgy.
She
Look
wore
how
a
edgy I
beanie
am.
every day, okay? Get more edgy than that.
She what?
She wore a beanie every single day.
I forgot my beanie today.
Yeah, where is it? I was
I forgot it.
wondering.
Nick, do you have a beanie for us? No?
He's ready to
Jim
go,
just
man. He's
yanks
ready to
it
go.
out.
He's ready to go.
But in terms of like expectations of, if you have been on a series at this point in life, then you should be more prepared. You should have the ability to take direction quickly. You should have the ability. There will be less patience with you, I think.
Hold on a second. Prepared in terms of what? Prepared in terms of knowing your lines? Because I think when a lot of people get into this industry, they go, oh, well, I know my lines. Oh, well, I'm just so focused on the lines. And surely that can't be the be-all and end-all of what it means to be prepared.
No, I honestly think over-knowing your lines is the end-all. But that's a very controversial
So what do you mean by being prepared, and therefore there's that extra expectation?
Yeah, I think honestly just the term of like be prepared for anything in terms of having a conversation. You should be able to hold a conversation a bit better because you're working on set with adults, whereas another 16-year-old isn't around adults as much as you. There are different expectations of, they might not expect your talent to be at a certain level because of where you're coming from.
Gotcha.
So in that way of like, you're going to want to surpass their expectations. You're always going to want to prove yourself a little bit more. As I did get older, I found when I was younger, I got amazing opportunities, and I do as I got older too. But there was a point in time where I was hitting just a bit of a rough patch in terms of like, I was being called in for things I was just too old for, but I wasn't being called in for things that I was the right age to play.
Right.
And I think that's because also just my entire life I've been quite petite and on the shorter end, to put it politely. So I also think my size, I thought my size held me back, to be honest. I don't think
That
that's
because you were a
what
smaller
was it.
individual, people didn't see you as a certain age?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
But
Or at least on
really-
camera, like you were always playing younger than your actual age?
100%.
Okay.
But I think what I actually did with that, to be fully transparent, is I think I did that to myself. I don't think that was a real concern. I think, honestly, I've searched up actresses under 5'1", and a
Yeah.
lot of the a lot of the best ones are. So
Yeah.
I got in my own head about that, and I think I told myself for so long, like, no, I'm being called in for these roles because I look young. When I was like, no, it's actually just because these casting directors have known you your entire life.
Right.
And it's really, and honestly, being the youngest in my family, I never experienced this myself until my friends who are older siblings started growing up.
Yeah.
When I'm like, wait, what are you telling me that Lindsay's in grade 11? She's not in grade 11. She's in grade 6.
Yeah.
And it's like this, you don't want to accept that somebody's growing up too. And I'm not saying that casting didn't want to accept I was growing up, but I think that for so long
There's
they
an
had
element to
seen me
that.
be playing these younger roles and doing that well. But then I kept getting the feedback of like, she was great, but just too old. And one day I was like, so how do I not read too old? And somebody was like, that's life experience. Like, that's really, there's nothing you can do.
So what was the transition like of going out for these roles that you were too old for to getting into the room for, I guess, the right roles or the roles that you felt were at your age or roles that you wanted
You
to be
felt
going out
seen for like
that-
the current you.
Yeah.
I think both open conversations with my team and open conversations with my coaches and mentors who brought the reality of the situation to me as well, in terms of I was getting other opportunities, but maybe I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing, in terms of I think I was still in my own head of like, oh, but I'm too young to be playing this. I think I was kind of my own worst enemy during that time, to be honest, in
right.
terms of I didn't know where I belonged. And I think it's funny, but to be fully transparent, also being like a young woman, it's coming to terms with your sexuality. Like that was a huge
Totally.
part of playing new and older roles, was
I was
like
just gonna
I
say
did
that-
have to become comfortable with myself and
Yeah.
grow into that. And there
Yeah.
were just certain elements of me that weren't where I maybe needed to be playing those roles. But
Yeah.
my life was going another way, and that's okay too, of like you're just life experience, right?
Yeah.
And it's probably also tough because, to your point, if casting does see you in that way because they've known you for so long, because they've watched you grow up, even if you did feel, like you were talking about growing into yourself, even from a sexual perspective, it's tough for them to see you in that light. It's sort of like a parent who has a kid growing up. It's tough for them to acknowledge that they're no longer that kid. They do have, they are
100%.
going through puberty, that they do have new tendencies and new interests, and it's probably tough for casting to like rejig their mindset when they have such a stark opinion of you in a good way.
And even that, it's hard to rejig your own mindset of like, I don't want, like, I've had my same agent for basically my whole career. So I was going to say
Yeah.
over half my life. So yeah, since I was 12, where it's kind of like a part of you's like, I don't want her to see me doing that either.
Yeah.
Right.
But then it's so funny because rewind 10 years ago when the industry was also very different. At 16, I was auditioning for all these interesting roles too. And like, I have a really specific image of me and my mom running a scene and my mom going, I need you to go run this with your sister. And I went, what? And she goes, you're doing this too well for my likings.
Wow.
And it was like, and I didn't even understand the context of it, but it actually was a
just tough for
sexual
her to
thing. And it was
see
really
you.
hard for her to see me like that.
Wow.
And I think maybe even looking back on it subconsciously, maybe that even affected me of like, oh, whoa, I can do these things and it makes people uncomfortable. I don't
Yeah.
know how. Now I'm like,
Do you feel that made you hold back on that?
it's possible.
Or do you feel like that empowered you to go, oh, I can see that when I do these things and say these words, it affects people in a visceral way?
I think maybe both.
Cool.
I think both. I think it was very dependent. I think when I did hit 16, things really changed in the industry for me in terms of what I was auditioning for.
Mm-hmm.
And my parents were more vocal about things that they were not happy about with the
Right.
industry.
Okay.
And I think that probably made me be like, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
Like, you're ruining my life. Which, no, looking back on it, thank you, Mom and Dad. You protected me.
Oh,
There
what a
you go.
sweet moment. Wasn't that
Because
so
it's
nice?
it's true though. Like looking back on it,
Yeah.
there were 2 times that my mom was like, "No," and I begged, and I even found these old emails recently when I was going through my old emails,
Dish.
and it was a scene when I was 16 that called for me being in a bra and underwear, And I saw the emails of my mom being like, absolutely not. If they want to put her in a big white T-shirt, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
But she was just basically wrote some options. And then I emailed my agent privately being like, no, I'm okay with it. And she was like, let's have a conversation.
So that email about the bra and underwears that went to you and your mom responded absolutely no, and you said, skirt, never mind.
Yeah, basically.
And at the time you were 16?
Yeah.
So because technically...
You're not an adult.
Yeah, are you able to make that decision at 16?
So my agent was really she's the coolest ever. And honestly, when I turned 16, the first audition I had was very intense. I won't even get too deep into it because it was just like really dark subject matter. I actually came to the studio, like LB Acting Studio, to record it. And Lewis, who I'd been coaching with forever, kind of knew my mom wasn't a stage mom in terms of like overstepping and making sure I was doing everything, and just took a step back and was like, I know you don't always read Romy's sides. I just wanted to make sure you're comfortable with this. And my mom was like, should I not be? And he was like, no, I really need you to read this before I bring her in the room. She read it. She was like, we're here. Like, if you want to do it, do it. But she was very upset.
Yeah.
So we did it. And then
how old were you at this point?
I was just like freshly 16.
Okay.
So then I think she had spoken to my agent just to be like, honestly, I don't know how I feel about this. And I knew she was having that I knew she was going to have that conversation because we were very open about it too, in terms of like, she's not just going to stop me from doing things that I want to do. She just wanted to understand why I wanted to tell certain stories. Like, and me and my mom had a very open conversation about it, brought my dad into it. She set her boundaries, one of which was no bra and underwear till I turned 18.
Right.
And she just had some of her boundaries and certain things that were like, okay, we can talk about this if there's interest shown, but I would like to know how it would be shot, et cetera.
Right.
Because also when you turn 16, you don't need your parent on set anymore. And I think she probably felt helpless.
But you still need a chaperone though, right? Or is that so at 16
you can work on set alone.
even if you're not officially an adult at 18?
Yes.
But to actually...
But if you're traveling, that's different.
Okay.
But to actually... Like, if you're offered the role at 16, you would still need your parents to sign off on it? Or would you be able to just accept it?
Yeah, I guess. I don't know, actually. I think you would need your parent to sign off on it.
Because you're technically not an adult, right?
I was going to say,
yeah. But they don't need to be with you on set.
Right, which I understand would be the concern of, like, I can't have my 16-year-old daughter on set without me being there and just trust that a bunch of strangers that I don't know...
Well, that's the other thing. Like, I think my mom had seen some things that she didn't love on sets before, and she had probably seen... I did have people-pleasing tendencies growing up. And I think she was worried, right? And that's why I would thank my parents in terms of, like, I don't know.
That you're going to say just yes to everything and not think it through.
And to be fair, I think the industry has changed a lot in recent years of, like, intimacy coordinators and all that kind of stuff.
Well,
of, like,
even the roles I was going out for when I was 16, now they're not called for unless they're 18 plus. And that's the truth. Like, I feel like I'm still auditioning for things that I was auditioning for when I was 16.
Just because you're now over 18.
Yeah. And because I can't. And to be honest, I think it makes more sense because these characters do... I'll go back to M really quickly.
Yeah.
They had asked me how old I was at the end of filming, and I was like, do you want to know? Because I'm way older than the character. And they were like, yeah, tell us. And they were like, oh, that's actually perfect. That makes sense. You're 25. You're playing 20 years old. We needed someone a little older. In terms of, like, this character has experienced a lot of life.
Yeah,
She's experienced more than your average 20-year-old has experienced, which is all relative to your own personal life, obviously.
Sure.
But in terms of age, you do have more experience. So we kind of finished that conversation with me and my agent going for coffee. She always says, she's like, I can't say I've had too many 16-year-olds email me being like, let's go for coffee, please.
Yeah.
We went for coffee, we chatted, and basically she ended it with like, I understand what you're comfortable with. I understand what your mother is comfortable with. You are not an adult.
Yeah.
I would like to treat you like an adult because you act like one, but you're not an
But
adult.
we must be honest about this.
And so I think after that, her and my mom had another conversation. Also, my parents were very aware we went for coffee.
Yeah.
They were like,
Right.
But they were very much for it. And they kind of landed on a happy medium of like, okay, this is what Romy wants to do. This is what she will definitely not be doing. And this is what we can talk about.
Yeah.
I think that was also really important for me and my parents in terms of like, it was no longer just fun at that point when I got that one audition and I saw what I was able to do with storytelling. It was no longer just play for me. It was no longer just like excitement of getting to leave school early to go for an audition. It was like, oh, this is somebody's story. I want to tell it properly. I want to be a part of the stories that make people uncomfortable, and not in the fun way of like, I'm going to go against my mom and dad, but in the way of like, I want to make people question how they've been acting, how they've been feeling. I want people to be seen. And I think that really opened up my parents' eyes to like, oh, she's not just doing this for fun anymore.
This means something to her.
This means something, and there's something. And I think also them seeing me take more initiative with everything was just like their way of being like, okay, so she's also growing into an adult. She'll be ready when she knows she's ready. And on the subject of like just sexual roles and stuff like that, I actually didn't even play anyone that had that experience until like 3 or 4 years ago. It was my first time. And to be honest, I'm so grateful that I had an intimacy coordinator there. And years ago, there would not have been an intimacy coordinator, and I would have been younger and I would not have known how to speak up for myself. But now I feel so much safer, and I feel like I constantly know my boundaries, and I know when it comes to especially my body, but also just my mind, I'm not compromising anything.
So that was for Terror Train, though, right?
Yes.
And that's the same casting director as Backstage from when you were a kid. So surely that transition that we were just talking about of, you know, casting director seeing you grow up, that was probably something that you had certain feelings about as well.
Yeah, no, that one was weird for a few reasons. One of which, when it was kind of one of those first opportunities of like, oh, this is really sexual, and it's no longer like, it was just flat out sexual. It was like me, one of the audition scenes was basically that scene of me straddling a guy, trying to convince him to cheat on his girlfriend with me and being the powerful one in the situation. And I got that scene and I was like, ugh. And I was like, I don't know how I'm supposed to do this, let alone how am I supposed to do this convincingly to people who have known me since I was 12 and cast me in my first big project and have known me since I was a cute kid and have always called me cute. Like, I'm scared. And it was one of those things of like,
but they wouldn't have brought you in if they didn't think that you could do it, right?
No, so it was one of those things that Shari and I had talked about on the phone in terms of like, let's go bold with it. Let's just do it.
But how, because even when we were talking about it, you were like, So like going into it, did you feel like you could do it? Did you know that you're capable of doing it? Or was there a sense of like,
I don't know.
I think there was a sense, to be honest, of like this, I don't know if I'm going to book it. Terms, and that's kind of, I think, benefited me in a weird way of like, I find I do my best auditions, and this is just like a tip for any actor out there, don't audition for what you're auditioning for. Audition for the next audition. Like, just make sure you're getting called in again and again and again. And that's it. Because to be honest, when it comes down to their final choice, it's not going to be in casting's hand. It's not even going to be in the director's hand. It's going to be in some network person's hand, and they're going to be making the final choice. So if you're
That's a really good point. I don't think a lot of people even realize that a lot of casting directors don't actually, or most casting directors don't actually make the final choice. They sort of they act as the conduit to give production and producers options based on who they know in the industry and who they trust and who they can rely on.
Well, this is crazy, but a coach recently actually just told me that it's not even the producers anymore that's usually making the final decision. It's marketing.
It's marketing, yeah.
It's marketing and network executives too. It's like, what's going to sell?
Yeah.
It's true.
It's a business, baby.
It's insane.
It's and that's what I'm saying of like, those people aren't necessarily looking at you being like, did she breathe into that moment?
Right.
No, they're looking at, is that going to sell? Yep. Okay, great.
Yeah, can we make money off of that person? I don't know. This person might look better with that person. Like
It comes down to the weirdest of things.
Yeah.
So it's like, for me, every audition is really an opportunity to get another audition. That's how I like to look at it. And I think changing that like framework in my mind has helped so much. So this was like, okay, I'm going to go for it. I feel like this is a crazy opportunity to show what I can do. I feel very comfortable, but a part of me also didn't believe myself. So
Gotta have a little faith.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's what I'm saying of like going back to being your own worst enemy of like, I just took that audition. I was like, I'm going to go for it. This character is oozing sexuality, and that's something I feel like I've been working on, oozing myself in characters.
Yeah.
Sure, we can go with that.
Yeah.
So what I did was I ended up straddling
That's
a
going to be
chair.
the title of this podcast.
Oozing
How
myself.
to ooze
Oozing.
yourself in character.
Ooze yourself.
Sorry, you were saying you were doing something with a chair.
Yeah, I was straddling a chair.
There you go.
It was a perfect time for you to cut me off.
Yeah.
No, I straddled a chair. I sucked on a finger. I did the whole thing. I like really, honestly, to put it in actory terms, I took risks. And
Sure, yeah.
I was just like, I think that's the best case for me right now is just showing casting that I can do both. That even better. Like I don't need to be the young person and I don't always need to be the sexual person. I can do it both. And I think that, and then it was really big surprising to me that I got a call back and booked it. And it was a great, honestly, learning experience for me, and playing that role gave me so much confidence as Romy and as an actor, like as both. But it was so rewarding to just hear, honestly, casting and the producers even tell me, like, you took a big risk. And I ended up, spoiler alert, I ended up playing the killer in the second movie. And I was like, how did you cast me off that scene to play a killer? And they were like, well, part of it was my eyes, apparently.
You got
You
the
have killer
eyes. Yeah.
you do.
And then the other part was like, you took a risk, and this character was going to need to do anything to survive and to get it her way. And by you taking that risk in your audition, we knew you would risk anything. Yeah. And it was really rewarding to hear that of like, ooh, sometimes those really weird, uncomfortable risks pay off.
Yeah, I think that's something that we've talked about as of late is like I've just now come to this realization of like when you're auditioning for something, you're not doing it how you think the casting or producers want you to do it. It's like you just show what you bring to the table in your version, and it's like take it or leave it. There's no right or wrong. There's no, I mean, to a certain extent, obviously, you know, if
to a certain extent, but I'd also argue like how are we supposed to know what's right or wrong when we're only given so much context? And that's something I saw was quite unique actually with Revival. Was I made a choice in my audition. One of my choices in my audition was like so wrong to the story point actually, and I realized this while I was in New Brunswick filming, and I had spoken about it with the showrunners, and they were like, "Okay, but it worked in your audition." You know what I mean? Of like, you can always make a choice that makes sense and serves you in the moment.
the version of that you're showing.
What can you get? But I actually didn't realize what a lack of context we get until I did a callback for a film. I never ended up getting it. But the first thing the director said was like, thank you so much for doing that with so little context. And I was like, hey, you're welcome. Like, it just hit me of,
I don't need your context.
wow. Well, because for this...
I think that's important, though, to say that we don't need context necessarily.
Well, for the callback, they sent a full script.
Okay, great.
So it was like, here, now that you have the context, thanks for doing that with none of that.
But in the initial audition, you didn't need context in order to find your own voice, your own truth, make your decisions, not just about as an actor, but find the choices that the character had to make in those moments to find a groundedness in it that still resonated with the showrunners.
For sure. It also like goes back to kind of what you asked me about how do you decide what audition takes more prep and not. It's like all we're doing is our job as actors are not to be magicians. We're to tell story. We're to show relationships. We're to show meaning within that. The rest of it is wardrobe, hair, makeup, set deck, special effects. So, like, if Revival was maybe written how some of the scenes were written where there was, like, important context to the supernatural elements, if those were the audition scenes, I might have needed more time, if I'm being honest.
Sure.
But in terms of understanding this dynamic that Em was having with her sister and her father in this moment, it was like, I've had that. I've been there. I don't need to think about it. It's like all I need to do is evoke somebody's emotions and show her emotions in this moment. And I think when I've just noticed this with myself, when I overthink things or when I overly prep things, they become a bit theatrical or over-rehearsed or I get stuck in my ways. So it's like it's a bit difficult to change it in terms of working with somebody. And when you're working with a reader versus prepping it on your own. There's a whole other person to give you something to work
changes
with and
things.
to
Right.
take, and that creates magic moments in of itself.
So this is we're running out of time. But this is a question that I really wanted to ask you, and this is a perfect segue into it. Over the years, since you've been doing this as a kid, you've obviously picked up things that work for you and don't work for you, and it's different if you're working on an audition versus actually working for the project on set, or if you're visiting the set as a guest star for a couple days, or if you're number 2 on a call sheet kind of thing. The work that goes into that is different. Little insider information, but I know that at a certain point recently, you approached one of your acting coaches and just wanted to rework things. You kind of went to them and said, I want to go back to the drawing board of how I approach work, how I approach the auditions. And this is after you've been doing it for a certain amount of time. So what was the thing that you thought was missing, or what was the inclination to try to make some sort of shift that you felt wasn't working for you?
Yeah, it is interesting. Before we get into it, can I ask a specific question? Was this Lewis?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just thinking back to what it was. That was probably a year and a half to 2 years ago that I approached Lewis, and I was like, I need to change things. I found that, so since I started this as a kid, I started with a very, very different mindset and frame of work in terms of like, first of all, I was never meant to be in this world. This is never something my parents saw happening, or my dad claims he saw it happening, but I don't know. I was a dancer for my whole life. My mom was a dancer growing up. She was a real big dance mom. I really fell into this world. And my parents just always stressed me. I do have anxiety. And just as a kid, I didn't have the same tools I have now as an adult to manage it. So they were just worried about putting their kid in a professional setting, let alone a setting where like there's just so much pressure on you.
A lot of money. Every second counts. Like, you can't screw this up. Hurry
Truly.
up, get it right. Yeah,
and they were around all these parents that were really pushing this on their kids. So they were uncomfortable. Like, that's one thing I do want to put on the record of like, I think me joining this industry, as supportive as my parents are, I think it was a really tough adjustment for them. And now that I'm an adult, I can see how much they've sacrificed and supported me to let me do this. And I really am so thankful. But they always stressed me as a kid, like, the second you stop having fun, you are done. And that's all it was to me. It was just fun in terms of like, my parents once asked me, because I was a really shy kid, and that's why they sent me to theater camp. They just hoped I would be forced to speak, and then they got their wish a little too good there. Be careful what you wish for.
She's still talking,
Still talking. We were just hoping she'd talk for a minute.
Yeah, right?
But
I just wanted to know what she wanted for breakfast, man.
seriously. It was good. But yeah, so they just stressed me, like, they were so curious when I started this industry, and I would love to speak to my parents about it, but I think they were just like, how do you go in that room and do it and then come out and go back to like shell Romy of like, you come out of the shell in there and then you go back in, and I would just throw my sides away and they'd be like, how'd it go? And I'd say, good. My parents were always like, how do you do it? And I'm like, well, if they like me, they'll see me again. And if they don't like me, I'll never see them again. So it's that easy. Like,
Badass.
that was my mindset. And it was so easy and simple. Or like, I'd have a million other things going on in terms of tests or school or whose locker am I decorating for their birthday tomorrow? It was like, those were the
priorities that
those
matter.
were the priorities, right? It was like, how do I get to this audition, then still get to my birthday party later?
then when you started growing up and then you wanted to make a shift, what was that?
Well, when I started growing up, I think I just naturally did make the shift. I think I started getting those older, more mature roles, those story points that were just like...
when you went back to your coach and was like, hey, I've been doing this for a long time, but I feel a need to change something.
Yeah, well, that's because I feel like when I turned 16 and I got a bit more obsessive and I was like, these are the stories I want to tell. This is why I want to tell this story. I want to make people feel things. Like, it became like, I want to make this my whole life. This is the only thing. I always thought maybe I'd be a vet. Maybe I'd be this. This is just fun. This is exciting for now. No, that was like a pivotal moment of like, I can't do anything else other than be in this industry. Like, truly, wholeheartedly, I need to do this. And then there becomes this insane pressure you're starting to put on yourself of like, I need to do this. I need to tell this story. This is a very serious story. I need to make sure I'm doing it with grace and with respect and with research and proper homework. So I almost took myself far too seriously in a good way with respects. But then I realized during COVID, that's when it got very dangerous for me, I would say. I do think going in room helped me so much of just like walking out of the room and shaking it off and just like going back into reality.
Yeah, like leaving it in the room and then.
Yeah. Whereas in COVID, I was filming everything in my basement. I joke like I'm hair, makeup, wardrobe, lighting, camera, editing. I'm everything. Like it's too much and it's hard. I started growing attachments to everything I was auditioning for, and I started doing multiple takes because I had so much freedom, which actually stirred me so wrong. And I realized I didn't lose the love for it, but I lost the fun of it. And I was putting too much work into it to a point where like something I've always recognized has worked for me is happy accidents. They are happy accidents when I don't know things, when I don't pre-plan, when I allow the scene to take on a life of its own and I'm working with the person across from me. And, like, even forgetting lines, sometimes I find that magical because
100%.
I mean, I just had to think about what I was going to say. Like, it's just, we're human. So I went to Lewis and I was like, I don't think I'm having fun anymore.
Yeah.
Like, this is sad. I'm just sad all the time. I open my Vimeo and I'm seeing all the auditions I'm submitting and I'm not hearing back and I'm not really understanding
You just have
why.
this tapestry of being ghosted.
Literally, it was
projections.
There was a point where I actually opened it up during COVID and I was like, and you're like seeing like I've got goth makeup in the one, I've got like curled hair and like a tank top on in the other, and then there's like me with glasses, and I'm like, what have I just done?
Yeah.
And I was like, I just missed learning to throw it away and just learning that like it will come to you. What's meant for you won't pass you. And so I wanted to really reframe my mindset in terms of like, how can I stop hurting myself doing this? How can I find the love of just auditioning again and not the pressure of feeling like I need another job?
Yeah.
And with that, I realized I was just honestly looking at my sides too much. I was doing way too much prep. And that's kind of what inspired me to like take those sides of being like, oh, Lewis would say like, don't overthink this moment. Don't do this. Like, it's all there for me. I don't need to do anything other than bring a part of me to this character and show that that's what I have to offer.
Awesome.
So honestly, that's sorry. It was just like all of that. It was the biggest part of it for me was like, how do I go back to childhood Romy?
That's beautiful.
It's so sad though, because it's like, then you just realize the older you are, the more, well, first of all,
life happens.
The more weight there is on it. Like it is no longer fun. Mom and dad, it is a job.
You start to now need the money, and you start to
pay bills, and you know, like
100%.
Are we good for? Are we running out of time?
I think that might be all the time that we've got. But Romy, really thank you so much for stopping by and for spending some time with us. We'd love to have you on again because there's so many questions we had, but the kind of conversation beautifully went in its own direction. But thanks for sharing your insight with us.
Thank you guys for having me.
Ladies and gentlemen, Romy Weltman.
Let's do it.
Ladies and gentlemen, Jared and Daniel.
I got the first billion. I love it.
There you go. Thanks so much, Romy.
Shout out my agent for that.